today we're lucky enough to be joined by Jake from Macedon Range Locating. That's right.
That's right. Yep.
Mate, how you going?
Good, Pat. How are you?
Yeah, going good, thanks, mate.
Thanks for having me on.
Mate, we've had a couple of good days up here at the NULCA 20-year anniversary, and it's been a good little event, hasn't it?
It has. It's in our industry where we're so spread out across Australia, it's good to get amongst these events and meet people like yourself face to face. You're up in Sydney, I'm down in Melbourne, and it's we can talk over social media, but these events that bring us face to face really gives good community connection amongst us all. So
Yeah.
it's been good.
How long have you been in the industry for?
Yeah, so I got my start in late 2015 or right at the start of 2016. A guy I knew, his son down in Melbourne was a very good locator, and he was looking to put someone on. He was very busy, and so he approached me, and I said, "Do you want to come on board and give it a go?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And that was 8 years ago.
Yeah, oh, nice. What are some of the challenges you face at locating in Victoria?
Specific to Victoria, that's a good question. But I know in general, I can probably speak on behalf of everyone nationally. I think one of the biggest things is managing customer expectations.
Yeah.
Everyone can relate to that. I think a lot of general members of the public out there can understand what a Sparky or a plumber does, but what we do is quite um, quite different to that. And when a member of the public sees some paint on the ground, they just think it's a bit of graffiti. But bringing what we do, bringing awareness to what we do, is a key element. And when we're approached by someone like, say, a homeowner that said, our fencer has to get locating done, I've called you because he's told me to ring you. And they say, "Well, why am I ringing you?" And you say, "This is what we do. This is what we're about. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is what we're trying to protect." And then it goes from there. And then there's a lot about education. So yeah.
What services do Macedon Range locators offer?
Yeah, so
Is it Macedon Ranges, isn't it?
ranges, yeah,
Macedon
yeah,
Ranges, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so that's a sort of an area,
Yeah,
I guess.
sure.
How you would say northern beaches of Sydney.
Yeah,
It covers a
okay.
range of areas, but so everyone's a locator. Everyone waves a wand.
Yep.
But specific to me, I do electrical cable faults.
Okay.
I do a bit of survey and drafting up of plans.
Yep.
And that's sort of where I call it. A few people ask, "Oh, when are you getting a concrete scanner?
Mm.
Have you looked into this bit of equipment?" And I just think, like, everyone has their aspects of the industry which they enjoy, and I say, how thin should I spread myself?
Mm.
And so I quite enjoy those aspects that I just listed, and I like to say that I try and do those aspects well. And if I get approached for concrete scanning or other aspects, we're a tight knit community. We all know someone that does that aspect. So I'll refer them off to someone who's good at that, or I know who's specialist in that aspect. So
Yeah.
yeah.
We're in a bit of a similar position. We do concrete scanning, quite a lot of it, and a few of our clients want us to do the coring and the cutting as well. But I'm like, you can't be good at everything. You can't be, you try and stick to what you know, and if you do want to eventually go out into do other things that like little uh, what's the word for it?
Like aspects.
Aspects of the business, yeah. I mean, you can maybe eventually do that, and I think we are eventually going to be doing that with like back trucks and and camera work. Eventually, we're going to be, over the years, we're going to reach out and start doing other things there in those sort of departments. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think it all comes down to like where you're based as well. Like
yeah,
where I'm based, it's a regional area. It's somewhat in the country. I don't have multi-level buildings
mm,
for the concrete scanning
yes,
example
yeah,
specifically. So if I get asked for it, it's a long way away, or it's down in the city, and
yeah,
it's just one aspect that doesn't you know take up much of my you know the hours in my day sort of thing in terms of requests.
yeah,
So I leave that aside and
mhm,
specialize in the other aspects that one I enjoy, two that I think I'm you know I like to be, I like to focus on them and get better at them. So yeah.
How do you find using GPR down there?
Yeah, tricky, and it comes back to that managing customer expectation thing again, because the use of the term GPR, or ground penetrating radar, it's almost a catchphrase, and you could probably relate to this, but we're constantly asked, "Oh, we need a GPR survey." Okay, hold on, what are you trying to achieve?
Mm,
We just want to find services. Okay, well, how about you let us just use all the
yeah,
tools at our disposal to achieve that. And so we're constantly getting asked, we need a GPR survey. Okay, but let's just do everything we can to achieve the result. So down in Vic, the ground conditions are sometimes conducive to good results, but most of the time, and you can normally ask, where are you located, and that's an indication straight off the bat
yeah,
whether GPR is going to be good or not. I've done a few jobs, sort of just in the northwest of Melbourne, and the consultant for my client just continually asks for it, and he says, "We've just got to provide it." And I say, "Okay, no problem.
mm.
I can almost tell you the result, what the result will be, and it'll be, inconclusive, but yeah, you've just got to try and please your customer, educate them, and manage their expectations. It does work in certain scenarios. I love the football oval. Find some irrigation. It works
Yeah,
nearly every
yeah,
time on that
yeah.
example. But yeah, there's definitely a time and place for it. It is a very handy tool, but it's not the be all end all.
And what's your input on a quality level for a GPR? Do you agree that we need to um, have a quality level that's specific for ground penetrating radar?
Brief thought on that initially was, yeah, that'd be great, because it comes back to you know we just want to be able to classify everything. But the more I think about it, and refreshing myself on what the standard is, classification of utilities and looking at the levels, uh, GPI is a tool in the tool bag. So is acoustic locating.
Mm,
So is using a probe. So is using divining rods
mm,
sometimes. Um, so why should we incorporate just one of those tools and have to really try and justify it, explain it, and um, so I think there is a place for it.
mm,
I don't know, and this will have to be nutted out with a bit of, or a lot of, community engagement amongst the locating community, and how can it be incorporated. But yeah, I I, I don't know that QLG is
is the right
is the
answer.
right answer.
Yeah,
I think it overlooks a few things, because if you look at the quality levels, it talks about spatial position, absolute, for
tolerances and
PPA,
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
there is a mention of electronic locating, but it says it's just an example. It's just if electronic locating is used, blah 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 blah. So yeah, so it does need to be incorporated somehow. I don't know how that is, and yeah, I look forward to engaging with the community and seeing what we can come up with. It does bring heated discussion, as we saw over the last few days
yeah,
at this 20-year conference. So
yeah. That's it.
yeah,
Couple of old heads having a dig.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, they have some valid points,
yeah,
and so do the young heads, and I think everyone has biases as well. GPR, for example, we keep getting told that it works great in WA, and you can probably pull it out in every scenario and see things. And then in other places like where I am, 80% of the time you pull it out and you just go, yep, no, white noise, chuck it
Mm,
back in the car. I tried.
yeah.
So yeah, it does have a place, yet to be determined where that place is.
Mate, locating it often takes you to some pretty unique locations. Can you share a place that you've recently worked in that's a little bit unique?
Yeah, so it's an interesting project, I guess. It's probably like, so where I am in a regional setting. There's probably a lot of people involved in the big infrastructure projects in the capital cities, but being up in a regional area, we get a lot of rural properties, farmers, and you know nicer properties. So one of the projects that I've been working on, it's I won't say just a residential property, but it's a large property that they are developing, and and the infrastructure that they're putting in and the work they're putting in there is eye opening
Mm,
for what it is. And I've been a part of that project for uh, about 14 months now,
mm,
and it went from being on board there initially just to do a locate, and it evolved, and there were trades people putting infrastructure in the ground, and I said, hey, while I'm here, do you want me to survey that, capture that,
mm,
record that, document that? And it turned into, oh yeah, that would be amazing to have some record of what's going on. And then there were other questions come up, like, you know, we're putting a fence over here. Can you set out our fence? I said, yeah, I can do some set out for you. And so it's gone from a locate to a documentation to a setting out of structures, buildings, fences, that type of thing, and then even volumetric surveys for dams, cut and fill analysis,
mm,
and some of these things were learning on the fly type of thing. You get thrown in the deep end. Can you do this? Leave it with me. I'll see if I can help you. You go back, and because you've got a project or a reason or motivation to learn something, you, you learn it pretty quick. So I've been able to help these customers in a variety of means that before this project I probably wouldn't have envisaged myself doing anything like that. So it's not a underground tunnel. It's not a massive bridge project. It's not a you know fantastic you know phone tower or
mm.
anything like that. But
Yeah.
specific to a like small regional area. It's yeah, it's got me really engaged with the tools that I've got and the knowledge I've been able to gain, and it's improved me as a locator and a small business offering those services. So
Coming from a regional place in Victoria, um, what kind of plans are you getting back? Like multiple plans, or is it like like an area where you get the water? It's water covers a large area, or like in Sydney we have Sydney Water, and that's if you're water in Sydney, that's what you've got. Is it the same in regional sort of Victoria where you are?
yeah, yep, very much so. But interestingly, an area that's within my sort of catchment. I guess this leads into the die before you dig, or biter
Biter,
before
yeah.
you before you dig Australia. Um, Subject: one of the water companies isn't a member, and so that's just local knowledge. You got to know that I do a request in this area. There is water and sewer assets here, but they're not going to show on the die before you dig. The biter
Yeah,
request, and
it gets you.
yeah, and yeah, you got to look it up. But they have really good. It's Colibin Water. They have really good GIS
Okay.
systems, so you just got to know to jump on their website.
Yep.
And it would be really good if a lot of other asset owners provided, GIS mapping like that, because
Yeah.
it's very handy. So
Mate, where do you see the industry in the next 10 years?
that's a big question, I think. Our industry has a long way to go in multiple areas. I think there's going to be a lot of change over the next decade. There is a lot of technology uh, coming, especially in the mapping aspect and visualization aspect. 3D rendering and those types of things. It's it's within our grasp to use a bit of tech, a phone with some lidar
Mm.
and positioning to walk over an area, put it into some processing, and you can spit out a 3D model that you can pan around.
We saw a few of the suppliers sharing their new products, and it was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So I think as the accessibility improves for those types of things, it'll help, the general locator be able to pass on information and to the customer and improve deliverables. Um, so yeah, technology is a huge aspect, and then I think the growth of the industry in general, it needs to grow. We are we are a small community offering an invaluable service, and as the population grows and as more and more things get put in the ground, there's going to be a bigger need to find everything before it gets damaged. So
And last night we spoke, you've got two young boys, two 4-year-olds,
yeah, that's right.
two twins. Mate, how do you go managing a small business and the young family? How do you go about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's not specific to our industry.
Yeah,
It's something a lot of people can probably relate to. Um, yeah, this point in my family's life, it's a busy time, and you have to work out. You have to remind yourself of what your priorities are. Obviously, work is a big priority. It supports our life, but the family trumps that every day of the week.
yeah,
And the the health and the happiness of the family is key, because if you haven't got that, it affects everything. Um, it affects your work. It affects your mental state. And if you aren't in a good frame of mind, especially in what we do, you've got to be focused. When you're on the job, you've got to be focused, because what you're doing could have a big impact on your customers. So you have to be doing your utmost and your best every time you step out on the site. And if you aren't on top of your family life, and you can't give your all and give it your best
yeah,
on site. So yeah, what we do, we try and it's hard. It's hard to say no to work, especially when you got a good solid customer base, and customers that you value and want to please. So it's hard managing your time spread between work and family, but it's just it's the sacrifices that you have to make to ensure that you have, because like, let's go big picture here. Like, what are we here for? What are we on earth for?
yeah.
It's just to enjoy life.
Mm.
And the on on a micro level, day to day, you've got to be ensuring that you're putting things into place that on a macro scale, like, that gets you that enjoyment and happiness in life. Um, yeah, it's a big one.
Mm. Mate, the past few days have been NULCA current directors have been pushing the agenda of the next generation of board members coming through. They would be people of sort of our age. Um, could you see yourself as being a director, or even possibly a leader in the future of NULCA?
Yeah, I won't commit to that right at this second, but um, yeah, the current leadership of NULCA have put in an immense amount of work over the years. The things that they do in the background are quite laborious, labor intensive, time consuming, and to a lot of us, it doesn't go unrecognized.
Mm.
And so there have been those same core at the top, leading the way for the past 20 years, and um, no one lives forever, and you know there has to be some young blood coming in
Yeah.
and reinvigorating and keeping it going. And yeah, so I think that I I, I can offer um, assistance in some form, and I think a lot of people of the community um, should, in a way, when they can, um, to varying degrees, offer assistance in whatever aspect they can, because it, it supports us as a community. If we didn't have NULCA, we wouldn't have things like this. We wouldn't be brought together as a community like we are. So there is a lot of value in what NULCA does and what they bring. And so, yeah, we need to think about how we can help going forward. And, in the short term, I'm willing to do a few things, and
Mm.
never know what the future holds.
And on top of that, the next generation, what would you give? What advice would you give a young individual looking at joining our industry?
I think there is a big learning curve in the multiple aspects of what a locating company offers. So being open-minded and just willing to learn um, is probably the biggest thing, and I think that's applicable to not only our industry but any industry. Is just showing up, showing enthusiasm, and showing a willingness to be a part of it and learn is key.
Mate, who would you like to see come on the podcast?
Yeah, good question. I think so. We see a few locators that are say actively engaged in social media, and we get an insight into what they do day to day a lot. Um, but I think the people that aren't engaged in those social media channels and we don't get a lot of exposure to, but have significant roles in our industry, such as you know the directors of NULCA and people like that, uh, would it'd be really good for the industry for you to sit down with them and for us to hear a conversation, just a candid conversation with those and get their insights. Because they've been around and into the industry a lot longer than say you and I,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it'd be really interesting to hear even some stories.
yeah. Some
Everyone
old war stories.
everyone's got some
Yeah,
stories
I
that
heard some last night about 11 o'clock last night. Yeah,
yeah, that'd be really cool if you could get some people at the other end of the spectrum. I'd listen to that.
yeah. Oh, well, mate, thanks for coming on. It's been a good chat. You've been very vocal over the past few days, which has been great. I've loved your insight to question time with back and forth with so whether that be suppliers, industry leaders. Mate, you've been really good. So, mate, thanks for coming on.
No,
Yeah,
thanks very much, Pat. And anything that people are doing within this industry to bring us together and bring some support is great. So what you're doing here with your podcast, it's great. No, so keep going. It's uh, as we see the guys at NULCA and the guys, at Bido, everyone's putting in an effort. So obviously running a podcast takes a bit of effort, and no, it goes appreciated.
yeah. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, Pat.